Number 1. Blizzard. I had a creepy experience one time during a blizzard. I was much younger, and I was working in town at a fast food restaurant. I worked the closing shift because I was the type back then who liked to sleep in late. And normally, when the closing shift came and gone, it was normally around 1 in the morning before I started walking home. I have to explain just a little bit about the town that I live in. It's a small town. There is one road, however, where all the major businesses are. And some people call it the fast food road, actually, because it just about has every fast food restaurant you could think of on it. It has some small retail stores like a Dollar Tree, and a couple of grocery stores too. This area was normally pretty busy during the day. The area around it was pretty rural, so everyone comes to it to shop and eat. But when night falls, usually around 10 o'clock, it turns into a ghost town. There are still some places that are open late, but business is slow. By the time I get out of work and I'm walking home, I am literally the only person out there other than an occasional car driving by. Well, this day was even worse than that. We were going to be hit by a blizzard, and our area was not one area that really gets snow. I mean, once in a great while. Since we don't normally get snow, and this heavy snowfall was coming, people began acting weird. They were crowding the grocery store to get supplies in case they had to be in their homes for a long time, or if the water went out. And of course, we remained open too because those people were also getting tons of drive-through food that day. It began snowing in the afternoon, and boy was it a mess. People who don't live around snow don't drive well in it. There were a few accidents on the road, but the business kept flowing until around the time it got dark. We were really slow then. The manager was sending people home, but keeping the restaurant open because he had to. I volunteered to keep working because, since I walked home, I would not experience the danger that the employees who had to drive had to experience. So after a while, it was just the manager and me. At the end of the day, we cleaned up and locked up the store. The manager offered me a ride home, but I declined. I liked the snow, and I wanted to walk home and enjoy it. So he left. It was during that walk home that something really strange and creepy happened. Now keep in mind that the snow was still falling hard, and visibility was very limited. I was walking in a direction that took me out of town. On the other side of the road, I noticed a figure who was walking in the opposite direction of me. I wasn't sure if it was someone I knew or not, even though I doubted it. The snow falling was way too thick to tell. When the guy stopped, though, I found that to be very weird. Then I could tell he was looking at me through the snow. He was probably trying to see if I was someone he knew, or that was what I told myself. I didn't really pay him any mind, however. I pretended like I didn't really see him, and I continued my walk through the snow. He hadn't moved from the spot he was standing in, looking at me by the time he was out of my peripheral vision. I kept walking, but my curiosity got the better of me at some point, and when it did, I quickly looked back, and what I saw startled me a little. The figure had crossed the street, and was now on the same side of the street as I was, walking in the direction that I was walking. It was like he was following me. I tried to convince myself that he definitely wasn't following me, and I kept walking. I turned off the main road and got onto a road that led toward my neighborhood. And once I did, I couldn't help but look back and see if he was still following me. And although it was hard to see through the snow, I could confirm that he was. I had several more turns to make before I got home, so although I was a little worried, I was not yet ready to panic. I mean, there were many homes in the neighborhood that my house was in, so it's quite possible that we just were going in the same direction. My brain kept trying to interject that, even if that were true, why did he turn around and follow me? But I did my best to try and ignore that thought. The next street turned into the subdivision, or whatever you want to call it. After walking for a while, I checked back. Yes, he was still following me. So now I began to get more worried. I was absolutely convinced this guy was following me now. But what I didn't understand is why he was walking so slowly behind me. Why wasn't he trying to catch up with me or something? I had 2 more turns to make it to my house. I turned on the next street, and after a little while turned and looked around. I could confirm then that he was still following me. But although I was now panicked, I still noticed that he hadn't gained on me. He was keeping pace, but he hadn't tried to catch up with me. When I turned on my own street, he was still behind me, so I sprinted to my house before he could make the turn. I went around the house, entered it from the back side, and locked the doors, keeping the lights off. I peeked out of the blinds of the house, and I finally saw him appear on the street. He was looking around at the houses. He walked up to one of the others that had their lights off, but jumped back when a dog in the house began barking. At one point he came into my yard. Then I quit peeking and hid myself. I waited for him to leave. I heard him walk up to my porch, and I suspect he was looking through the window on the door. I remained hidden until I heard him walk down the porch steps. After a while, I checked and he was gone. That was when I finally allowed myself to relax. I don't know what he wanted, or if he was going to do something, but for some reason he followed me and even tried to discover which house was mine. It was weird and creepy, and I didn't feel safe in my home that night. Often, not knowing what might have happened is very scary. Number 2. Window. I grew up in not the greatest area. We lived in the city, and although our neighborhood was not the worst place to live in the city, it was certainly not the best. We lived on the ground floor of a house with 3 flats. We had those radiator heaters in each one of the rooms. They were a nuisance because you really couldn't control how hot your house was. So there were times that I would sleep with my window open to let some cold air in so I wasn't sweating in bed. My mom hated when I did this, and she had good reason for hating it. Number 1, our windows did not have screens in them, and number 2, my bedroom window looked out into an alley. She was always worried that if I kept the window open, some homeless person or some criminal would break into the house and kidnap me or rob us. So whenever I had the window open, I had to make sure that my mom was already in bed. And I wouldn't open it all the way. I would crack it open a few inches only. That way if someone was in the alley, they might not notice it. This was something I did for several years. My bed was right by the window, so the cold air would be hitting me directly. So this was on a particularly cold and snowy night. My parents had gone to bed, and I stayed up a little later than them reading. I was supposed to be in bed, but I had a small flashlight, and I could read under my blanket. When they went to sleep, I cracked my window open and waited for the room to cool down a bit. When it seemed cool enough for me that I could fall asleep, I prepared to go ahead and do just that. The cold air must have helped because I fell asleep pretty quickly, and it was a good sleep, and a deep sleep. I don't remember having any dreams or anything like that. But there was a noise. That noise was bringing me out of my sleep. I opened my eyes, looking around to see what the noise could be, and that is when I saw it. There were 2 hands, gloved hands, under the frame of my window, and the hands were pulling the window up. At first I didn't react. There was the shock of seeing such an odd thing happening, and that was followed by panic. But still I was frozen in place and didn't know what to do. After getting the window open, The person opening it peeked their head into my room. Now, the alley did have a street light in it. That light was behind the man who was now looking into my bedroom window. That would make him scary enough, but he must have been homeless because he was scraggly, nearly toothless, and he smelled quite awful. When he looked over at me, I gathered myself up in the corner of my bed, and then I began screaming for my parents. Now it was the man's turn to be shocked. He stood there for a moment, looking at me, and not doing anything at first. When the door opened and my father came into my room, their eyes met quickly. My father grabbed my baseball bat and headed for the window. The man quickly ran out down the alley. My father yelled some stuff at him, but he did not pursue the man. Needless to tell you, I never slept with my window open on the ground floor ever again. Number 3. The gym. There is really nothing I hate more than when someone puts you in an unfair position. This happened 2 years ago. I go to an all-night gym. They don't have staff there at nighttime, and often I would go really late, around 11 or midnight. This is mostly because I don't like for people to watch me while I'm working out. It's not even a weight thing, I'm in decent shape. It just kinda creeps me out. Well, there was a problem a few months before this happened. People were buying memberships for one person, and then letting their friends come in to work out for free when there was no staff there. When the staff found out about it, they put up signs that no member can allow somebody else into the club without their own key. If a member did this, their membership would be canceled immediately. I never thought this would be an issue for me. I didn't let people in, and I really didn't know anyone at the gym. One night I was at the gym when it was snowing pretty hard. At that point I was on a treadmill. A guy came up to the door, and he apparently did not have the key to get in. He kept trying to get my attention, and I did my best to pretend like I didn't see him. I knew he wanted me to go and let him in. Well, my ignoring him did not work. He kept trying to get my attention still, and he was getting loud and frustrated. Finally I turned to him. I shrugged my shoulders, indicating that I could not let him in. And that is when he began to get very angry, banging on the door. "I'm not going to get my membership canceled letting somebody in without a key," I yelled at him. There were cameras all over the place, and I knew that if I broke this rule, the management would find out. The guy started yelling at me and first threatening to hurt me. However, his yelling and threats got worse, and he told me I had to come out of the gym sometime, and he would be waiting for me. He went over to his car and got in it, and he waited. At first I thought I could just wait him out, so I did an extra long workout, and he remained out there in the car the entire time. I thought maybe he was just trying to scare me, so I got ready to leave. As soon as I was heading toward the door, the guy got out of the car and came towards the door. He was yelling and threatening me again. Well, I wasn't about to leave, so I went to the service desk and called the police, telling them what happened. They showed up fast, and when they did, the guy tried to run to his car really quickly, but they stopped him. I actually didn't expect this, but they arrested him. The police had a good relationship with the gym and apparently could access their security cameras, so they saw this guy out there threatening me, which means he broke the law. I walked home after that, and I was still shaken up though. Fortunately, I never saw that guy again. Hey y'all, Killer Orange Cat here. If you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, please feel free to click the subscribe button and bell below, or click the icon of Ichigo the cat that will appear at the end of this closing. Leave me a comment, and share this video with someone you think might enjoy it. If you have an original story you'd like narrated on Killer Orange Cat, please email it to the address included in the description. But most importantly, don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where a Killer Orange Cat might be hiding. Good night.